Welcome back to Talkin Shop with ShopSabre. I am Brandon. We're back with who we with? Wait a second here. We got Travis today.
We're back.
Travis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, sir.
Appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely.
We don't have Nick again. This is 2 weeks in a row. Nick's bailed on me. He's I don't know what he's out. I think he's out fishing today. I don't know what he's doing.
He might be. I guess I don't even know what he's out doing.
Yeah, I don't know what he's out doing. He's off today though. He
Personal day.
Yeah, took a personal day, needed the day off. Can't blame the guy. He works his butt off, but probably building Legos, to be honest with you.
As long as he's not slipping and falling at the boat access.
Right. We don't need him falling down and hurting himself again. He tried that enough. But that's where the fishing joke comes from, is because he was wearing a fishing shirt the day he fell down and hurt himself trying to take pictures. So, but no, I appreciate you jumping in here. What's new? It's been a while.
It has been a while. Well, life's been busy over there at ShopSabre, so I guess I've been just selling machines.
We've been talking about that. Actually, it's funny that you say that. We've been talking about that the last few weeks. We said it's crazy the difference in feel this year in 2024 versus last year. And, you know, it's definitely a different feel coming into this year, feeling like people are moving and businesses are growing and there's a lot going on. Where last year you kind of came into the year with a little bit of uncertainty, right? There was a little bit more insecurity in the world. And this year it seems like we've talked about with Chad and Sean, is that people held on too long last year and now realize like it's time to go.
I feel like people have been holding on to their money, hesitant on making the jump. And this year, I think everybody's done their research. Everybody knows what they need to do. Decisions are happening within a week or less a lot of times. Yeah. So it's good to see.
No, it's good to see. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people growing their businesses, but how's your kid doing?
He's doing good.
Yeah.
Going to be almost 8 now.
So. That's what I was going to say. Isn't that crazy? 8
years
old.
Man, it flies by.
It does fly by. Like I said, before you know it, they're driving. So,
right.
Yeah, my kids can't believe they're going to be 10 this year.
It's crazy.
Blew me away when I thought of it. I'm like, man, where did my last 10 years go?
Right.
But here we go, right? So, no, I didn't do much this weekend. We had a hockey tournament. Well, we have another hockey tournament coming up this weekend, too. So, we're in hockey tournament season for us. We're taking off to Fargo for the Fargo Squirt Invitationals this weekend.
It should be fun.
Yeah, the boys, you get 5 games over 3 days or something like that. So, yeah, it's a lot of hockey is all I know. And my kid's in the Squirt Olympics, so he's going to be in the goalie race.
That's awesome.
So
I've seen some videos that your wife posted. I just popped up on my TikTok the other day. I'm like, man, that kid can move.
Yeah, he's pretty good in his little pads for not bad for 9 years old. But, yeah, he entered in the Squirt goalie race, and he found out that they're giving away, just like the Olympics, right? They give away gold, silver, bronze medals or whatever. You know, first 3 people get medals, and my kid is just hell-bent on trying to place. Like, I mean, there's tons of goalies here. I mean, we're talking 60-plus teams of this thing. So,
wow.
You know, you figure if every goalie has 1 or 2 goalies, there's probably 100-plus goalies in this thing. So,
right.
I mean, he's got some work out for him. You know, he's going to have an uphill battle, I think. But the kid's a pretty fast little skater. So I think, you know, if nothing else, he's going to give him a run for their money.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to the other goalie dad right now when we came in here. And his exact text message to me was, sounds like we'll be in different rinks. Easton has less than a 0% chance of a win. So this dad's pretty funny. He is his kid's one of those kids that you enjoy being around. He makes you laugh, but he's not confident in his kid's speed as a goalie. He's not the fastest goalie. So,
well, practice makes perfect.
So I told him, I said, come on now. I mean, the other kids could fall down. You never know. So give him a chance. But no, I'm excited. Like I said, there's a lot that we have going into this weekend. The boys have been playing some good hockey lately, so we're heading up to Fargo to take on a team from Arizona, first game.
Oh, that's crazy. They're traveling that far.
That's what we said. We're driving 4 hours. They're going from Arizona, so they got a 20-hour drive or fly or whatever. I don't know if they're flying with their gear. I assume they're flying.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're coming all the way from Arizona to play the New Prague Trojans. So
it's dedication. The kid must be pretty good, too, if they're, making that trip, you'd think.
You'd think so. Yeah, I mean, I guess, again, it's a huge invitational tournament. So, I mean, all the kids, all the teams are pretty good there. I mean, in all honesty, we're going out for the fun of it. I mean, it's a bonding thing. Kids get to hang out for the weekend together, hotel. I mean, they're all looking forward to swimming. You know how it is. Like water park and a kid, So they get to do a bunch of cool stuff there. We're going to take them to one of the minor league hockey games Friday night, some of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I wanted to talk today a little bit about, automation in the business. We've talked about that in the last few weeks, but I wanted to expand that a little bit because we get a lot of questions about tool changer versus manual change and kind of the do's, the don'ts, the pros, the cons, all the stuff that relates to the tool changers. And even though this will be a little bit more about CNC machines directly, it still relates back to business and thinking about like the pros and cons in your business and when you make certain decisions, how they affect future decisions. And so some of that, comes back to, buying a machine is the first step, obviously, when you choose to buy that machine and incorporate it. But then you start looking at like the list of options and the things that like you can add on to that machine and trying to determine what's right and wrong for your business. And, Travis, you have these conversations with a lot of people, and I guess, I'm sure you have a lot more to weigh in on this.
Yeah, so I guess it's a big topic, obviously, when you start talking about budget and what works best for the application. Obviously, if you're a weekend warrior or a hobbyist, you're just out there having fun, you can get away with the manual changes. But there's still even a lot of those guys where it's like, man, I really don't want to have that extra labor and extra time involved, because the nice thing with a CNC machine is you're automating, right? So you want to be able to walk away from this thing and maybe do something else. Well, if you have the manual change, you do have to kind of babysit the machine, right? So you have to come back, check and see where the file's at. And if that file's done, you got to load the next file, load the next bit. Where when you get into an automatic tool changer, basically you set up one file, all your bits, and you can come back to a finished product. So it's, in my personal opinion and professional opinion, going to be a good option for anybody as long as it's in the budget to go with the tool changer. But the nice thing too is there are options for customers that are on a tighter budget where we can still allow you to upgrade to a tool changer later if it makes sense. But I'd say nowadays, probably 80-90% of customers are going towards tool changers, even in the hobby market, just because
I've seen a huge push.
Even on the desktop models now, people ask a lot more about it just because they know what it does for them and what it does for their businesses.
Do you think people ask about it because it's become such a popular option, people don't necessarily even understand it? They just ask because it's something they hear about a lot? Or do you think it's because they truly need it and understand the benefits of it?
I think the majority of customers see these videos of these machines with tool changers on them and is like, wow, that's a game changer, because the guys that have been doing it manually for so long, some people still don't know it exists. So when they see these videos, they realize, well, man, this does a lot for what the machine is designed for, so I'm not having to babysit it and do a lot more manual labor.
Well, let's take a second here to explain it, because I'm sure there's people listening right now that are like, what the heck's the difference between a manual change and an auto tool changer, right? Maybe they don't understand it. So we're going to talk about it for a second here. But, in your business, a lot of people look at it from a standpoint of like, I'm doing things by hand, right? Manual to them is I'm cutting parts out by hand. I got a saw, I got, whatever. I'm doing it that way. And automated is just adding the machine. But there's a feature or function on a normal CNC router where you have a rotating tool, right? Your tool is spinning in the cutting head, whether it be a, router, a 110 router or an actual liquid cooled, air cooled, fan cooled, whatever, spindle. And you got this bit that's spinning and it's doing its work. But a lot of times what people don't realize is it's not just one tool doing everything. There's different bits for different materials. There's different cutting applications, whether you're drilling a hole, cutting a dado, cutting out a part, doing a 3D shape, engraving. There's a number of different tools that you might come across. And then the sad part is you think about all those tools and there's as many tools for each material too. So there's a drill bit, there's an engraving tool, there's a cutout tool, all that for plastic. There's all the same tools for wood, all the same tools for, the next material, foam, whatever. And so you start to think about the number of tools you might end up owning, right? Bits that you end up owning for your machine. And day one, maybe you don't have a lot, right? Day one, you have, a handful of tools. But day 100, right, you might own a lot of tools as you get, more versatile with your machine. But the difference is with a manual, when we say manual tool change, it means that you physically go up to the machine and change the bit out with a set of wrenches. Right? So we have what's called collet wrenches, where you have two wrenches in your hand. One goes on the spindle itself, one goes on the collet nut. And you kind of, they go towards each other and essentially break the nut loose, and then the nut screws off. You take out the bit, put the new bit in, tighten it all down, and then tighten them up with those wrenches. Now, the manual side of it is you having to walk up and do that procedure each and every time you change bits. So we'll use cabinets, Travis, because I think that's something we can all explain the best. A cabinet set has typically how many tools, Travis?
You're talking usually 3 or 4 if you're just doing the box sides.
Yeah, so you got your drill tool that does like your shelving holes.
Yep.
You've got your dado tool, right? Does all your pockets. Then you have your cutout tool, which is usually like a compression bit or something like that, where you're cutting out the shape. And then your fourth tool, generally spoil board kit, spoil board cut or something like that, right?
Yep.
So we got 3-4 tools depending on how we do our boxes. Now, if I'm a cabinet maker and I got a manual tool change, I got to walk up to the machine, put tool 1 in, which is generally you work inside to outside when cutting, right? Drill your holes, cut your dados, then work out to cutting the parts out. And therefore, I got to set up the tool, and the tool will do all of the work with that one bit.
Yep.
So I can walk away while it's doing that, per se. But sometimes that project only takes 30 seconds.
For sure.
I mean, right? I mean, you got people that are running a project that a typical cabinet set. I mean, how long are we talking, Travis? What?
3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah,
Start to finish.
Yeah, 3 to 4 minutes on your cut. Some of your machines maybe 5-6 minutes depending how big your cabinet is, right?
Yep.
So in 5 minutes, how much work can you really get done elsewhere?
Not much.
You know what I'm saying? Like as you start doing that, like there's not a lot of work you're going to be getting done. So now break it down into it's a 5-minute job doing all these bits together. That job might only be 30 seconds with that one tool.
Exactly. And you don't know that going into it. So,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, you walk away and come back, and your machine could have been idle for 5 minutes, and you didn't even know it.
Or if you're like me, you see a squirrel, and then squirrel, and you're running across the shop doing something else real quick, and you get distracted, and you're back a half hour later anyways.
Yep.
But the difference is, with a manual tool change, you come back in a half hour, let's say, right? You take a phone call, you got something going on, somebody in the shop bugs you. Whatever it is, you end up coming back to the machine, and it's been sitting idle.
Yep.
But the problem is with a manual tool change, it only got the shelving holes done.
Yep. You got maybe a quarter of your job finished.
Right. So now you go, oh, okay, I got to change the bit.
Yep.
And you got to remember where you're at, right? Yep. Walk out, okay, what part of the project did I do?
Yep.
Okay, I figured that out, change the bit, set my tool height.
Yep.
Which is the next step, right? Let's talk about that. You got to set tool heights now.
Yep.
Because you change the bit out, there's a variable there, right?
Yep.
Me putting the new tool in is a variable. So now I set the tool height. I get my 0 set again, make sure everything's set up. And now I load file 2.
Yep.
Which is now, let's say, my dados. So I start cutting out stuff with the dados. I start doing some of this stuff. And the same thing can happen all over again. Everything I just described can happen again, and it's another half hour potentially, right?
Yep.
So this project that should take 5 minutes potentially takes you an hour and a half.
Yep.
Because you get distracted, right? Now, let's say you don't get distracted. You just get through the whole thing. You're still talking about minutes of sitting there watching the machine, kind of babysitting it. And the whole purpose of buying a machine is so you don't have to do that.
Full automation. Yep.
So now you get through the tool changing side of it. And sometimes for people, it makes sense. Maybe you're using one tool for everything and you don't have to worry about it. But a lot of businesses like cabinet makers, they don't use one tool for everything. And so based on what your application, you mentioned that earlier, based on the application, sometimes tool changers just don't make sense. But it seems as of late, tool changers are becoming more and more critical for applications. And so as you get into production where you're making money and you're doing things with your machine, people don't want to wait. They can't wait. I mean, businesses now, right? I mean, when you think about it, nobody has the time to sit around and wait on a machine because every time you're waiting, your competitors are not, right?
Correct.
So at that point, your competitors are eating your lunch, and that's never good, right?
Correct.
That's right.
So we don't want to let our competitors eat our lunch. So therefore, we want to keep things going. So as we get, the projects moving, and we get the next job and the next job, and the next job, suddenly I'm spending a lot of time doing the work the machine's doing, right? I'm setting up the tools, I'm doing that. And all while there's always the variable of me. Every time I touch the machine, there's a chance I'm going to screw something up.
Yep.
I'm going to push the wrong button. I'm going to load the wrong file. I'm going to put the wrong bit in there, right?
Yep.
All of those things are real variables. And to be honest, if you think you're too good to do it, try me. I've been doing this 20 years of my life, and I still to this day grab the wrong tools and the wrong files once in a while. It happens.
It also depends on what else is happening in your life. You might have a
Exactly.
stressful day and completely forget where you're going.
Shut up a minute.
Hey, shut up. Who are you talking to? Stressful days. No, you're right. It's one of those things where you're right. Like when you get to that point where things come up. Like, heck, I have kids. My kids call me from school because they don't feel good, or something happened. The teacher sends me an email. Whatever. Those things distract you.
Yep.
Life happens and distracts you. And as those distractions happen, think about being a business owner for a second here. For anybody listening, your employees are not perfect. No employee is. They're going to have distractions. They're going to have sick days. Things are going to happen. What happens on the day that they can't be there?
Right.
Your operator, who maybe he is really good and he loads a file over and over, but everybody has to be that good. Now the machine's only as good as the operator, right?
Yep.
So when you're best operator is not able to be there, they're on vacation, they're sick, whatever, your machine now is reliant on plan B, right?
Yep.
Whoever the backup squad is. It's like putting the backup quarterback in, right? Can they throw the ball? Yeah. Are they as good as the first one? Probably not.
Probably not.
So that's where, like, as a manual tool change, you have to think about some of these things that can come up. Now, flip side, let's go 180 degrees, auto tool changer, right? Auto tool change means the machine automatically can put those tools in for you.
Yep.
But it also means that it can store the tools. That's the thing about the auto tool change side of it that people forget, is that it's not just about the bit being installed. I hear people all the time say, I can install a bit just fine. You're right, you can.
Yep.
But can you do it as fast, consistently, and as accurately?
Right.
Like, I don't think any one human out there can promise me they're never going to make a mistake.
100%.
And so with the machine, I have a tool changer. Now, depending what model you have, anywhere from 5 positions all the way up to 15, right?
Yep.
Depending what model you look at from us. Now, some machines are less. There's very few that are more than that out there. But that means you can have a number of tools pre-configured already in your files. So as you mentioned, Travis, I designed my cabinet, right?
Yep.
My dado tool, my cutout tool, my shelving tool, all that stuff is all into one file.
Yep.
So now when I load the file, one, I don't have to load the wrong file because it's only one file.
Yep.
One file does it all. I load it. I make sure all my tools are in the tool changer, right? So let's say I have a standard machine with a Fave 3, right? The ShopSabre Fave 3 has 15 tools in it.
Yep.
I can put my 3 or 4 tools I need in the tool changer, ready to go, already pre-configured. I set the heights on them all one time.
Yep.
Now they're all remembered. And every time moving forward now, the heights are set.
Yep.
So now I set my 0 one time, load the file, I hit go, right? Just like I was before.
Yep.
And I can walk away and go do that other thing I was going to do.
Yep.
But now if somebody walks up to me and distracts me, I get a phone call, whatever happens. Something happens in the shop and I have to walk away for 30 minutes. And I come back 30 minutes later. What happens, Travis?
Well, at this point, you've got a finished product.
Right?
You don't have to worry about the babysitting in between.
And describe finished product. What do you mean by finished product? So our listeners can understand. When we come back and we say, well, you got a finished product, I mean, what does that mean?
It means that you could take the pieces right off the table and assemble them.
Yeah.
Your dados are done. Your drill holes are done. It's already had the compression bit go through it, and now they're just loose parts waiting for you to assemble.
Yeah, they're literally sitting on the table ready to be assembled. So like if anybody checked out our YouTube channel this last week, Sean posted a video, or we posted a recent video, or it might not be quite live yet. Now that I think about it, I think I just gave away the secrets. We have a new video coming live this week. I shared the secret, but it's the table that Sean built. I can't think of the name of it now. What was the name of the table that we just built?
I honestly didn't even know the project happened until I walked out there and saw it.
Isn't that cool?
It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the name of it now, but it'll come to me later on in this episode, I'm sure. But the table that we just built, it is something that it required multiple parts and multiple sheets, but us being able to have an auto tool changer allowed it to just keep going. And so when we were done, like Sean was able to walk up and just grab parts off the table and put it together while the machine was working on the next sheet.
Yep.
So what you'll find in this video that we do is that as we get through each sheet, Sean's in the background building the table, assembling it while the machine's cutting the next sheet. So it allows us to keep things moving rather than waiting on the machine or the machine waiting on us, right?
Yep.
So it allowed us to be kind of 2 places one time, get everything done, and we put this table together really well, and it turned out really well. But the point is when you say a finished product, it's the parts were done, ready for us.
Yep.
I'm not having to go back and reload files. And so the cutting time significantly streamlined.
Yep.
And therefore, now let's say you have an employee that his job is to unload the table and to assemble parts. Like, they're just able to keep moving.
Yep.
They don't have to wait on your operator. They don't have to wait on something else. And the thing is if your operator's out one day, right, out sick, on vacation, the files are the files, right?
Yep.
So if you load the file, like, you don't have to worry about setting the tools wrong because the tools are already pre-set up by your operator. They don't have to go through and reset the tools.
Correct.
So the tools are already remembered in the controller. So again, no matter what happens from one day to the next, the machine's accuracy stays more consistent. And that's really the big advantage when you start looking at tool changes versus manual changes, that the consistency of your machine is really what you're looking at there.
Absolutely.
You don't lose that accuracy from person to person. I mean, Travis, if you go set tools on the machine and I go set tools on the machine, we're probably going to do it differently, aren't we?
We would.
Yeah. And it's just natural. I mean,
Yep.
we're not going to do 2 things the same way. We might both get to the same outcome. but we're going to do it slightly different. And the thing is sometimes we might not get to the same outcome, right?
For sure.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to make a mistake once in a while. I know that. And the more I have to handle the tool and the more I have to set up things manually, the higher the risk I run of something going wrong.
For sure.
And that kind of goes back to where we talk about like tool changers and capacity and larger tool changers versus smaller. How many times do you hear people tell you, well, I'm only going to use 4 tools. I only need a 5-position tool changer.
Yep.
But then you start to think about 4 tools for that job.
For sure.
Now, what if you want to do MDF doors? What if you want to get into dovetails? What if you want to get into engraving? What if there's so many other things you can do with a machine that, your one project might only take 3 or 4 tools.
Yep.
But you have 3 or 4 projects now.
Yep.
Right? So as you start to look at the 3 or 4 projects. I don't know where that came from. Projects. As you start looking at the 3 or 4 projects that you're working on, you might need 10 to 12 tools.
For sure.
And that's where, to me, like, people lose sight of the fact that with auto tool changers, you can set the tools one time and forget it.
Yep.
So specifically like dovetail tools or MDF door tools, they're very finicky.
Yep.
Setting those tools, you have to be very critical with your depth, because if you're not critical, every single time you're off at all, it's going to leave a mark. Your joints aren't going to fit. Things aren't going to work right.
And that's exactly where the Fave 3 came from, because we were having customers out there doing the boxes, the dovetail drawers, the MDF doors, raised panels, and shaker, realizing they're running out of spaces in their tool changer.
Well, that's exactly it, because they might not make MDF doors every day.
Yep.
They might not make dovetail drawers every day, right? They do make cabinets every day, a lot of times, right? We're cutting cabinets every day, but I don't need to have my dovetail tools set up every day. So when you start looking at it, an MDF door set is 4 tools.
Yep.
A dovetail kit is 3 to 4 tools, depending on what kind you're doing. So right there, you're at 7 to 8 tools, just right there.
Yep.
And you have a 10 or a 12 position tool changer. Some machines only have 8 positions out there, right?
Yep.
So 8 position machines, you're out of tools, and you haven't even gotten into the tools you're going to use every day.
Correct.
You get to a 10 position tool changer, you still don't have enough, because again, we just talked about it. You have to have 3 to 4 tools for that. So add another 3 to 4 to either 7 or 8.
Yep.
And I'm either at over 10 or at 12 capacity.
Yep.
And I haven't even thought about my other tools yet.
Exactly.
So it's like you start to get into that, and it's like, okay, suddenly I don't have enough tools. And so guys are having to choose, which tools am I taking out of the machine?
Yep.
Well, I think the average person takes out the tools they use the least.
For sure.
Right? So your MDF door tools or your, dovetail tools, whatever it is you're doing. And the problem is, now I get into things like miter sets, miter folds. You got other bits, and so people are like, I don't have enough tools, so I'm going to take them out. Well, now you take out the MDF door tools, and you have to set those up every time. Well, it takes a little bit to set up MDF door tools. To do it correctly, an MDF door tool set takes you a little bit to set up. I mean, it's not like a 1 second done. It's a several minutes setup, making sure you do it right, doing some test cuts, make sure things are lined up the way you want. Because they're a manual process. But now let's say, like with the Fave 3, being able to have your 3 favorite tools right at the machine. So you know that you can drill your shelving holes, have your dados, and cut out your tools all right there at the machine.
Yep.
Your spoil board cutter can go in the back. So you have that 4th tool back there. So now you still have 11 tool positions available for your other tools.
Yep.
Well, I got 4 MDF door tools, and I got 3 or 4 dovetail tools. I still have tools left over. So I can have a spare bit back there, or I can have other drilled, depending on what size, holes you're drilling. Sometimes you have several different box holes.
Yep.
Right? You don't know what you're going to need. Maybe you're doing Ray-Fix fasteners, and you have to have the Ray-Fix bit in there. Right? There's different things that you get into that suddenly require more tools than just the standard 3.
Well, and not all cabinet shops are only doing cabinetry. You have
Correct.
side jobs that come up. So
Right.
again, now you're trying to take out your production level bits to do these side jobs. So
And now, like, we've just explained a lot of scenarios, but now imagine doing that with a manual tool change.
correct.
Like, every single time you try to do an MDF door, you got to do 4 tool changes, and they have to be perfect.
Yep.
No, thank you.
I mean, even if you're just strictly doing box sides,
Right.
you're still changing upwards of 3 to 4 bits. That would be a nightmare to have to do in a production setting.
And to me, that's where I start to look. I've talked to some customers who've talked, and I'm sure you've talked to them too, that have said other sales guys out there have told them they don't need a tool changer.
Yep.
Can you imagine being a cabinet shop without a tool changer?
It would not be good.
Like, I just can't imagine the amount of time and energy you have to put. Like, can it be done? 100%.
Absolutely.
Like, me and you both know it can be done.
Yep.
And there are people out there, I'm sure there's a guy listening right now like, I do it every day and it works just fine. You're probably right.
If you're in lower production, it's not a big deal.
Correct.
I mean, it's the frustration after you start getting more jobs and you're getting slowed
Well,
down.
time is money.
Yeah, exactly.
And eventually, you're costing yourself money. You think you're making money because you didn't spend this money, but I look at it this way. Travis, what's the difference typically in a normal machine? You don't have to give exact numbers, but what's the normal average cost difference between a machine with a tool changer and without a tool changer?
You're usually probably about $6,000-$7,000 difference.
Okay, so let's call it $6,000-$7,000, right? If you're looking at a $6,000 investment over the life of ownership, right?
Yep.
I mean, the average machine life is what?
At least 10 plus years.
Okay, so $7,000 over 10 years. That's not a lot of money per year.
Not at all.
I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars a year.
Especially if we go back to the scenario when we talked about the guy that, gets sidetracked in his 4-minute job now took him an hour and a half
Right.
for one sheet.
So as you start looking at that, yeah, exactly. And you start looking at that, it's like it doesn't take a long time to justify the cost of a tool changer.
For sure.
But now look at it this way. How much do you pay an employee to stand there and babysit that machine?
Exactly. And your decent employees these days probably aren't working for less than $50,000, $60,000 a year.
Right there. Exactly.
Your machine costs that one time and now will last you 10 plus years.
Correct. So it's like that's where it goes back to people thinking like, oh, I'm not going to buy a machine. It's too much money up front. I can hire a guy. That guy you're hiring costs you more than the machine.
Correct.
Rather than hiring another employee who may not show up half the time
Yep.
in reality, right? They might not show up half the time and their work might be shoddy at best. I always say, let's harness the good employee you already have.
Correct.
Give the people in your shop that already know how to do what they're doing the ability to do more.
Correct.
And that is train them on a machine, right? We can teach the average person how to run a machine. And so you don't have to go hire somebody's fancy for this. You buy a machine, let the machine be a tool that your existing employees your already existing employees can use, right?
Correct.
And that's for me, like that's the benefit of adding a tool changers. It's like I can hire a guy for $50,000 to $60,000 to try to increase my production.
Yep.
Or I can buy a tool changer for $7,000 to $8,000, call it, 6 to 7, I think is what you said.
Yep.
And it's on my machine then.
Correct.
I have that forever.
Yep.
Like even if I don't pay the machine off in the first year, I know I can make $7,000 with the machine in the year.
Absolutely.
If I'm doing a cabinet shop or I'm a sign shop or whatever, there's a lot of different applications that require multiple tools.
And I personally feel like the learning curve is going to be less on an auto tool changer because you don't have all these intermediate steps that you have to do every single time you have to switch a bit. Because if a guy switches a bit, forgets to tool measure it, breaks that bit, now you just cost yourself more time and money.
Yeah, I mean, $100 a tool, and now suddenly it doesn't take many tools to break, and you're out.
And again, we're only human. Humans make mistakes. That's why the machines are a lot better because they're a lot smarter and they're more consistent.
Wait, are you calling me stupid? You're right. I mean, when you look at it, it's not that, I don't like to say machines are smarter than humans. I just think machines have less distractions than humans.
Sure.
That's the advantage there, right? They only know what they know. So we tell them the program they're going to run. We tell, so again, we can still mess them up and make them do stupid stuff. But once you have your tools set and you have your files set, the area that you're working within that, is a variable is much smaller. There's not a lot of change from job to job at that point. And so you limit your number of variables.
Yep.
So now let's go a little bit further into that. And you look at variables and, as you said, costs of some of this stuff. And there's a side of it that you mentioned that I hadn't really thought about. And that is the time spent in your shop setting up is another variable.
Yep.
Because again, as you said, if I get distracted for an hour and a half doing something else, like what else is not getting done?
Correct.
Where if the machine was cutting the whole time, did I really lose time?
No, because you're still getting that outcome, what you're looking for,
Right.
to go start to finish on that sheet.
I still got more done than I would have if I was doing it manual.
Absolutely.
Because here's the thing. If I'm running the saw, I can't talk to you.
Yep.
But in this case, if you walk into my shop, I can still have a conversation with you while the saw is running, essentially.
Correct.
Right? It's feeding itself. It's doing everything. Like, it does a lot of things where it's like, I can still be moving forward, even when I'm taking care of the customer service side of things. I'm on the phone with somebody, talking to a contractor, bidding a job, whatever. The machine can be running.
Yep.
And the special, part of it that I really like is I can hire more guys to talk to people,
Correct.
right? That side of it, I can't teach a machine to have that conversation with them in their home and sell the product.
Correct.
right? But I can teach a machine how to cut the parts out.
Yep.
To me, the valuable time as a business owner is spent not cutting parts. Nobody knows your product better than you.
Correct.
So the more you're having to sit there babysitting a machine and talking about machines, or the processes that machines do, the less you're doing the parts of the business that really nobody else is going to do better than you. Who's going to sell your product better than you?
Exactly.
But who's going to cut it better than you?
Usually the CNC.
ShopSabre.com.
That's what I like. That's a good button. Yeah, but you're right. The CNC machine can probably outcut you.
Yep.
In all reality, it's going to be faster than you over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
It's going to be more consistent than you over a long period of time. It's going to produce better value than you can produce as a person cutting.
When I talk to guys and gals on the phone, when I tell them that they can get a start to finish box side done in, an average of 4 to 5 minutes, they jaws drop. I mean, they just can't believe it because they talk about, the amount of time it takes them to do it manually. And that's when I start talking again, because some of these people say, well, manual change versus tool change. We have the same conversation and it's a no-brainer. They all understand that $6,000, $7,000 difference. It's overall cost. It's going to be well worth it.
Well, what's $7,000? Like you said, what's $7,000 when you look at an employee cost, right?
Correct.
I can't pay somebody $7,000 a year to stand there and watch my machine and change it and do all that.
Yep.
Let alone for life.
For sure.
That's the difference. We're looking at it from a $7,000 a year, but it's not a year. $7,000 one time.
Correct.
You can't find somebody to work for $7,000 a year, let alone $7,000 for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
And the other question is do you live in a state where you have snow? Snowstorms happen.
Yep.
One of our customers, Shannon, I've gotten to know him pretty well over the years, and he bought a ShopSabre. That's how I got to know him. And he always posts pictures on snow days. He lives in southern Minnesota, and when big snowstorms come through, he posts video of his shop still running.
Yep.
And it's his machines cutting, and he's like, guys couldn't make it in today, but we kept cutting, and because the shop's on his land, so he walks out there, keeps cutting, and he doesn't have to stop.
Yep.
His business doesn't fall behind because they're able to keep going. It might take him a little bit more work because he goes out there and does it manually himself versus his employees doing it. But it's better than being down for the day because the employees just aren't there.
Absolutely.
So that's the other side of it, is allows your business to kind of control some of that stuff. The other variable is, what about overtime? What about the jobs that run long? Right? You got a big job that comes in, you got to get it done. What employee wants to work on a Friday night?
For sure.
What employee wants to work unexpectedly on the weekend because something didn't go right?
Yep.
It's a good way to frustrate your employees, right? Now, granted, there's always going to be times when we have to work overtime. Things happen, right? But it's a lot better when you have a machine that can take the brunt of we'll get all the cutting done over the weekend. I can do all this stuff. My employees can assemble it on Monday.
Correct.
Versus if they're not here this weekend, we're not getting stuff done.
Right. Now you're doing all the cutting and the
Correct.
assembling on Monday.
Correct. And that just slows you down. And then you start looking at even manual change versus auto tool change. That Saturday job takes you an hour with an auto tool changer, where the Saturday job without the tool changer still takes you a few hours, right?
Yep.
You still save time.
Yep.
And if you're paying overtime, time's money. 3 hours of overtime is a heck of a lot more than 1 hour of overtime.
Well, and the one thing, too, when I start talking to some of the employees, right, I'll talk to employees before we get to the ownership when they make the purchases.
Yeah.
And they start talking about how the owners want to, try to cut some cost and go manual versus auto tool change. And once I explain it to the employees, they start losing their excitement.
Right.
One thing that I see is that once people start introducing the CNCs to these businesses, their employees have way more excitement. They want to come to work. They want to run this machine because they know how well it's going to do the job in much less time. So, again, auto tool change is always a no-brainer if it's going to be in a cabinet shop for sure.
Who wants to work the weekend? Yep. Crickets.
Still waiting.
Yep, still waiting, right? No volunteers for the weekend. But it is amazing, though, with the machine, how many less headaches you run into from an employee standpoint, because they don't look at it from a standpoint of, you're going to wear me out on the weekend, right?
Yep.
It's not fun having to, hustle and bustle and try to keep up, right? But with the machine doing the majority of the heavy lifting, right?
Yep.
It's a lot easier when you're the guy hitting the button.
Yep, absolutely.
So it does. I mean, they get paid to do something that does take some stress off of them, but it allows you as the owner to really increase your production. And so really, as we look at manual change versus auto tool change, there's not a wrong answer, right? I mean,
Correct.
Both of them will get the job done. It really comes down to your business. And even if you don't run all day, every day, it's better to get the machine, the work done, right? And have the machine sit idle so you can rent out time, right?
Yep.
You can rent it out to other shops. You can, not necessarily rent out making them run your machine, but they can pay you to cut sheets.
Right, subbing out their materials.
Right. So there's so much time savings with a tool changer to me that it just makes sense it's a good way to pay for your machine quicker.
Absolutely.
An auto tool changer will give you the ability to bid on other jobs, even for other shops. Maybe you're not going to need the tool changer for everything. Maybe what you do does require one tool, right? You just drill holes all day long. Who knows?
Yep.
I don't know what you do, but you make something that requires one tool. That's okay, but having the tool changer just gives you that versatility to go after jobs that maybe you wouldn't be able to go after as efficiently. Because again, if I'm going to sub out time to a cabinet maker and I'm going to, cut out his parts for him, at that point, I need a tool changer to be efficient with my timing.
Yep.
To charge him appropriately. Otherwise, he's going to find another shop in town that can do it cheaper.
Exactly.
And now that guy's paying the payment of somebody else's machine, not yours.
Yep.
I'd rather him pay off my machine than pay off the neighbor's machine.
Absolutely.
So that's how I look at it. So not to beat a dead horse here, but I think that kind of explains auto tool changer versus manual tool change a little. Man, I'm struggling with my words today.
I think I'm making you nervous.
You're making me nervous sitting across from me. I get so nervous. But yeah, auto tool change versus manual tool change. And, I think there's a right and a wrong time for both. I mean, Let's be honest. If your budget's $20,000, maybe a tool changer isn't in the budget today, right?
Yep.
But the cool thing about ShopSabre machines, I can't speak for everybody, so please don't quote me here, but not every machine out there you can do this. But we have certain models that ShopSabre offers where they're compatible forward. So meaning if you don't buy it with a tool changer today, you can consider adding a tool changer to it later on.
Correct.
And now, that same caveat, there are certain ShopSabre machines you cannot add a tool changer to in the field.
Correct.
Right? There's certain levels of machine that you get into, and that is one of the benefits of buying some of the more advanced machines is they have technology built into them that allows us to upgrade options without affecting performance.
Yep.
And then there's obviously some of your more entry-level machines that, due to the entry-level price points on them, like they just don't have some of the technology built in to make it possible to add tool changers later on without potentially having performance issues.
Yep.
So there's definitely pros and cons to both.
I agree.
Did I miss anything?
I think we've covered it all.
I think we covered it. Yeah. Like I said, hopefully this week's episode kind of got you in the thought process of like efficiency in your shop, ways to speed things up. And again, we talked about tool changers specifically, manually versus auto, but you can look at it from other perspectives of your shop, right? Software, doing certain things with or without software. There's a number of ways we can use what we learned today and say, let's look at the bigger picture, right? It's not always about the price tag up front. Yes, it might cost you more to do it a certain way, but it could cost you a whole lot more down the road when you find out you should have done it the other way.
Correct.
Because buying it without a tool changer today and then realizing, hey, you know what, maybe we should have had it, it's more expensive later on. And at the end of the day, like it's always better to let's save some money up front, whether it be, in labor, whether it be in actual investment costs, whatever the cost of doing business is. But consider what your focus is and where your future is before you make the decisions on some of these options.
100%.
Travis, if they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Go ahead and shoot me an email at travis@shopsabre.com or call the main line and ask for Travis.
There it is. So if you want to know more about tool changers, you want to talk about, hey, manual changer versus auto, what's right for me. Maybe you just want to talk a little bit about some of the questions or the topics we went through today. You want to know more about it. Travis is good at the stuff, been doing it a long time. Obviously, I'm always available. I'll help out too. And, obviously be sure, check us out on our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of cool videos. It's a torsion box, in case you're wondering. It wasn't a table. Torsion box is the name of it. We built a torsion box. So if you want to check out that new video dropping soon, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see what we're talking about, where we used the tool changer and created a bunch of cuts and had ready-to-go parts off the table. So Sean put them together. It's a really awesome project. Like I said, be sure to check it all out on Facebook, Instagram, and, of course, our YouTube channel. I miss anything?
I think you hit it all.
I nailed it. That was good. Well, with that, I'm Brandon.
I'm Travis.
Thanks for talking shop with ShopSabre.